Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are continuing our path to the Amagi with the Tier 4 Japanese battleship Kongo. So, with that being said, let's take a look at our commander. We're running Takeo Takagi. Again, if you guys want to see other commander builds, go back to the first video in the series. As always on these Path 2s, the very first video will have multiple builds, and you can decide what you want to do there. But for the remainder of the series, it will simply be the commander that I use. Okay, we are running Takeo Takagi with Andrew Cunningham and Azure Lane Scharnhorst. We're running Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Drill Bits, Marksmanship, and Reaching Out XXL with the Will to Rebuild perk. Now, my commander is a level 16 Legendary 3, so keep that in mind. Alright. Let's get into the equipment. We are running Aiming Systems Mod 1, as always. And we are fully upgraded. We are running the Spotter Plane, the Community Contributor Flag, and Type 2 Camo for that extra incoming fire dispersion. Stats. 54,100 hit points with a 25% torpedo damage reduction. This is where you start to see the Japanese battleships actually have good torp reduction. Think about it. This is already as good as the Iowas. Not that the Iowa has particularly amazing torpedo reduction, but 25% compared to, what was it, 2% on the Ishizuki? So, yeah, much better. However, the guns are much worse. 356mm 41st year type guns, main batteries, you get 8 of them instead of 10. And the problem with these guns is they're so horrendously inaccurate most of the time. And on top of that, they overpin everything. Everything. But 17.1 kilometer firing range, 30-second reload time, 180-degree turn time is 37.5 seconds, so a little worse, but not too bad. HE shell damage of 5,700 with a 25% chance to set fires. AP shell damage maximum of 11,220, which is pretty good. Secondary armament, you get 127mm Type 89 A1s. You get 8 of those that reach out to 4.2 kilometers and reload in 5 seconds. They fire HE shells that do 2,100 damage and 8% chance of setting fires. And then you have the 152mm 41st year types that you have 14 of that reach out to 4.2 kilometers and reload in 10 seconds. They fire AP and fire out to, the maximum shell damage is 2,900. AA defense is getting better, still not good enough yet, but 13mm Type 93s, you have 8 of those doing 14 damage per second and reaching out to 1.2 kilometers, which is awful. 13mm Type 93s, that you have quad turrets, but you have 2 of those, you have 8 of them as well. They reach out, or do 10 damage per second and reach out to 1.2 kilometers. Then you have the 25mm Type 96 Mod 1s that you have 12 of that do 30 damage per second, reach out to 3.1 kilometers. And then you have the 127mm Type 89 A1s that you have 8 of that they do 40 damage per second and reach out to 5 kilometers. So you got a pretty layered defense in AA, but still not particularly amazing. Maneuverability, 27 knots top speed is ridiculously good, especially at Tier 4. Turning circle radius of 770 meters, also very good. The rudder shift is a little slow at 16.3, but it's not horrendous. Concealment, 13.6 kilometers by sea, 10.9 by air, 2 is always guaranteed, and 11.8 kilometers while firing in smoke. Armor viewer, let's take a look at this thing. So you still have a little bit of a protection at your bow from overmatching at the front. But as you can see, it doesn't go all the way to the point, so you can still be overmatched if they shoot your waterline. Or if they shoot literally anywhere else than the belt. But you got 76mm at the belt that can help quite a bit. However, that's pretty much where your armor ends. Like, you don't have a whole lot of armor on the Kongo. So you've got to be careful. You've got to be real careful. The good news is you still have a little bit of a hump back here in the back of the Citadel raising up, which means you can still be Citadel much like the Ishizuki when over-angling. But it's not as bad on the Kongo as it is with the Ishizuki. Ishizuki is like a guaranteed citadel if it over-angles. This one, not quite as much, but you can still receive the same citadel at the back. Okay? Other than that, the citadel extends from the front gun to the rear gun as usual. It is mostly below the waterline. Looks like it's right at the waterline to below, so if you're in a heavy turn, you're more apt to be citadeled, or if you're just over-angled, you've got the bulge in the back. So, let's look at the overview. Fast, above average maximum movement speed, which is something we've already talked about. It's more of a battle cruiser than it is a battleship, just like the Ishizuki, okay? So keep that in mind. It's not really a well-armored platform. However, like, if the guns behave, it can be very, very good. And we're going to showcase that in the video coming up. But the guns oftentimes do not behave. It gives you that Japanese troll dispersion that just absolutely makes you miserable. But long range, above average main battery range, hit them before they can hit you, in theory. Compromising, higher caliber AP shells may overpin the armor, but may still arm depending on shell velocity. So that goes back to the fact that this is more of a battle cruiser than a battleship, and it has thinner armor, meaning higher caliber shells can overpin, but I wouldn't count on it. Kongo. When she was commissioned, Kongo was the most advanced battle cruiser in the world. There you go. She was the first among battle cruisers and battleships to be equipped with 356mm main guns. Unlike previous Japanese dreadnoughts, Kongo received a thinner armor belt, while her deck armor and torpedo protection were reinforced. She entered service in 1913, and there were 4 of them in the series. So, let's take a look at her. Again, there are very few battleships in this game that I don't like the look of. Like, battleships in general are good-looking ships. They got good profiles. And Japanese battleships, especially with all those casemate guns running down the side, that's pretty sexy. Pretty sexy. Now, those of you who watch my Ultimate Admiral Taskmaster series know that I love to use the Kongo hull for builds, just because I love this hull. Like, all of those secondaries are fantastic. So, yeah. With that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we are on the Solomon Islands, and we spawn to the right, and we are in a match that most battleship captains would absolutely... Is it out of line to say cream themselves? Probably a little out of line. We'll just say they salivate over matches like this. Most battleship captains just absolutely love matches like this. But not when you're in a Kongo, because Kongos tend to overpin cruisers rather than just depth strike them like they should. So, with that being said, and that's if you can hit them at all, because like I said, the Kongo is probably one of the least accurate battleships that I've played. And you know all of the battleships that I've literally played them all, okay? Kongo is one of those ships that just never seems to actually hit anything for me. But in this match, we're going to have a little bit of a different time because we're going to be up close and personal with everything. Everything. This is going to be one of those matches where everybody just kind of rushes in and lets God sort it out. You know what I'm saying? It's like just stack everybody up and hope for the best. But again, you're going to get to see exactly the goods and the bads of this ship. The speed is fantastic. Love the high-speed battleships. You know that. I love being able to reposition. I love being able to turn around and kite away if I have to from a position that isn't necessarily in my favor. And the Japanese battleships early on are very, very good at that. So, with that being said, we take our first shot at a Karlsruhe who's actually coming directly at us. This is like best case scenario for us because we overmatch his bow and we can citadel him. Unfortunately, we didn't citadel him, but we got 2 full penetrations, got 7,500 damage, half his health is gone. Alright? Now, he's only getting closer. He's charging directly at our destroyer who has a death wish. Okay, with this many cruisers in the game, as a destroyer player, you have got to pick your fights. Alright, you can't just rush down light cruisers and hope to survive. It doesn't generally work out in your favor. Now here you can see we're aiming for and look at that awful dispersion. Awful dispersion. and we completely miss him. On both sides of his ship. Completely missed. He didn't even change direction. He's only 8 kilometers from us. But doesn't really matter. He's going to go down pretty quickly. Our Minakaze, unfortunately, not long for this world either, because charging light cruisers in a destroyer, not the best, especially when you don't even have any camo in the thing. But we take the shot at the Karlsruhe here, and unfortunately he eats torpedoes before we get there. Now that, unfortunately, is going to cause my guns to be weird for the rest of the game, because I just fired those single fire, and now I fire the rear guns full, and of course we get overpins on an Omaha who's broadside on. We hit a little too far to the back of the ship. So we're going to try to adjust our aim on the next shot, see if we can't give this Omaha what he deserves. And you'll see that the front gun, they load a couple seconds apart, and that dispersion's awful. But we get one, and then we get the other. Much better aim this time, aiming a little further forward. Omaha is just a floating citadel, like, let's be real, if you're sailing around broadside. It's a great ship. I love the Omaha. But if you're sailing around broadside, you're going to end up dead very quickly. Kuma, on the other hand, this guy is going to get away with sailing broadside to me for way too long. I don't know why, but this ship just refuses to citadel a fellow Japanese cruiser. Like, I just don't get it. Normally, Japanese cruisers get wiped off the map by battleships. It's usually one salvo and you're done. But this guy gets away with it for too long. And you can see that awful dispersion once again. One gun firing almost into the ocean right off the bat, and the other gun firing high. Just awful dispersion. But that's what you get to expect out of the Kongo. The Kongo's guns are awful. But when you get them to finally behave, you can actually have some fun in this thing, because it does hit like a freight train when it actually decides to hit something. And this Kuma plays around one too many times, finally gets citadeled, and we are able to remove him. Now, at this point, the enemy has completely folded. Their entire team is pretty much over. I'm paying attention to the destroyers, paying attention to the cruiser that's right over there, but honestly, the battleship that's 5 kilometers from me is kind of my priority at this point. Now, here's the thing. We overmatch his bow. We know this. We also know that if he over-angles a little bit, trying to do the Dreadnought Shuffle here, we could potentially citadel him through the nose, which is what we were going for in that particular shot. But we end up getting about 9,600 damage out of it, which was a very good accuracy roll. We get our high caliber with our secondaries. The secondaries can be quite nasty if people sit there broadside to you, because remember, we do have 152 millimeter armor piercing coming out of this thing, as well as the HE, the small caliber HE. But this guy, I think he just gives up at this point. He realizes the game's pretty much over. He has set me on fire quite a bit, but we just smash him right there. Now, obviously, we're running out of real estate to kite, so I've got to turn out. I don't want to end up spending too much time broadside to this guy. So we turn our backside to him, and we're going to start kiting out. Now, this is going to unfortunately mean that we're only going to be able to get the rear guns involved for a little while. But the front guns, like I said, the gun traverse isn't that bad. And you can see this guy has just kind of parked himself. He's given up hope. He is actually going to learn to fire AP here in a second. You'll see. Wait for it. That's AP. So we get very fortunate that we weren't slightly more angled. If we were a little flatter there, that could have been real bad for us, because the Nevada has very good guns. Remember, Nevada and Oklahoma both have the Texas guns and the Arizona guns. It's two weird guns. But there the freaking Kongo comes through for us, gets us the double citadel to finish him off. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. 99,000 damage at tier 4, not too shabby. 3 kills, top of the leaderboard, 1,942 XP. So if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.